It's a multi-trillion-dollar disparity.
Most people would be like, what's my retirement?
I spent a long career understanding the problem that I'm here to solve.
What made you decide to start a company?
I'm always someone who loves the challenge.
But you're not really an outsider.
You can't fail to understand the rules of the game if you're going to play the game.
Well, but 90% of us don't succeed.
I knew that it would be a frighteningly horrible experience for me to get in the water with 900 other men.
What?
That's been the recipe and the secret to our success.
Today's guest built a global company that operates in 39 markets with thousands of products in just 5 years. He's also a 3-time Ironman World Championship triathlete, which tells you something about how he approaches problems with stubborn endurance and zero interest in giving up. Our guest, Rob Schimek, Group CEO of bolttech. When he arrived in Asia in 2018, bolttech didn't exist. What did exist was a problem he couldn't unsee: the widening gap between the protection people have and the protection they need, especially across emerging markets. Rob had spent decades inside the global insurance machine. He knew the system wasn't built for the world that was coming. In this episode, Rob takes us inside that build, the early incubation, the brutal no's, partners like Samsung, Apple, and BYD that shaped their scale, and what it truly means to run a global Insurtech without losing sight of your mission. Rob, thank you so much for joining me today on Asia Tech Lens. What a journey you had. Your company, you started 5 years ago, but you already operate in more than 30 countries. What a success. But what's really interesting to me is like, a lot of the startup entrepreneurs, founders I talked to, they had the idea early on. They had the idea when they were in business school. They actually never had a corporate life. But you had a very successful corporate life. And you started your company at the age of 53, I believe.
That's right.
During my research that came up. So at 53, after decades of successful career in large enterprise, multinational corporations, most people would be like, you know, what's my retirement? What made you decide to start a company?
Miro, first of all, it's great to be here, so thank you for having me. I would say that I love to use an Albert Einstein analogy. And Einstein said that if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would like to spend 55 minutes understanding and analyzing the problem, and 5 minutes on the solution. And I analogize that to my career. I say that I spent a long career understanding the problem that I'm here to solve. And I didn't jump right into a solution, but instead I've spent my entire career understanding and analyzing the problem. And that's the beauty of a long career that has submersed me into the details of the insurance industry.
And how many years were you in with AIG?
I did a wonderful 12-year tour of duty with AIG, following 18 years with Deloitte & Touche. So I'm an accountant by heart, so my expertise is in finance. But I spent 12 years at AIG, first as the CFO of much of their general insurance business. And then by the end of my 12 years, I was the chief financial officer of all of the commercial insurance, general insurance business of AIG. So I think those two experiences, Deloitte and AIG, prepared me well to understand the problem that I'm trying to solve as an entrepreneur.
So what is the problem that you set out to solve?
Well, I really believe that in the end, there are 3 primary industry challenges that I'm trying to solve. And those industry challenges include the fact that customer acquisition costs continue to rise. There is a traditional insurance industry lag when it comes to technology investments and the ability of the industry as a whole to keep pace with the growing global protection gap. This global protection gap, by the way, is the gap between maybe it's the disparity between the level of protection that people need and the level of protection that they're actually able to obtain. And then the third thing that really I'm focused on when I think about the challenges of the industry are really the changing customer expectations. It's a digital world. The world is changing very fast. Customers have expectations regarding transparency, regarding convenience, and regarding the level of experience that they have when they go to buy insurance.
I mean, some of these problems, I'm sure the giant industry players are, for years, they've been trying to upgrade themselves, right? And all these big enterprises, they have spent a lot of money in R&D, in innovation. They all have a chief digital officer. Now they all have a chief AI officer. So how do you make your product and services attractive to them?
I really love that point that you made, Miro. The truth is, in defense of the industry, the established incumbent players are working very hard to try to keep up with a really fast-changing marketplace. And as I said, I spent 12 years as one of the incumbents in one of the largest players in this industry at AIG. But what I believe is really important is that everybody needs some help. The challenge that the established players have is that they're trying to run an existing business at the same time as they're trying to retrofit their business for the future. The best analogy I can give to you is it's like trying to build an airplane while you're flying the plane. The plane has to stay in the air. It's very important to continue to serve the existing customers that you have, but you need to retool this plane completely to be able to operationalize the new capabilities that exist in the marketplace today. And so sometimes it's easier for help to come from the outside. I was in a large insurance company. I know that they have their hands full themselves trying to do all the things that they try to do. And sometimes having this enabling capability come in from the outside can make it all a faster and more seamless journey. So we do not position bolttech at all as a disruptor to this industry. As a matter of fact, we position ourselves to be the enabler to the industry. So how is it that we succeed? We succeed by helping players who are already trying very hard to close the global protection gap. We help to make that happen for them faster with new technology, more modern technology, and capabilities that perhaps they're not able to build inside of their own organization because they're busy every day trying to serve their existing customers.
Or it's just more cost efficient and better ROI to partner with you guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what you said that you're not disruptor, you're an enabler. It's a great slogan because oftentimes you see those young entrepreneurs come into an industry. Maybe they're being naive, they want to change the world, how things work. But you're not really an outsider. You're like 1 foot insider, 1 foot outsider. So I guess that is your secret recipe for success from the 0 to 1 stage, right? I want to ask you that 0 to 1 stage. You started a company in 2020. If I remember clearly, 2020 in Singapore, we were all in lockdown. 2 months lockdown. Is that how bolttech was born?
So,
when? How?
So first of all, your observation is right on the money. We were born during COVID, and one of the things that I always say to people is if you're going to found a business, you better be ready to be able to have that business withstand all these unpredictable events that can happen during your time. It could be geopolitics. It could be it could be tariffs. It could be something like COVID. So you have to be able to withstand all of these items. And your analogy that you said, which was that it was born during COVID, was right. The idea wasn't born during COVID, though. It came before that. I made the decision to leave a large incumbent insurer way back in 2017. And I began my journey to Asia in 2018, but still with the idea. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I had access to the capital, but I really had to establish the team that would help me to make sure that we could really bring this to life and really begin the journey. So I would say the pre-work began as far back as 2018.
So at 2018, you moved to Singapore from the US in 2017, and for 2 years were you still with an organization, or were you just prepping for the launch of bolttech?
So Miro, I came to Asia in 2018, and really the process was being incubated. The idea of bolttech was being incubated from the day I arrived in Asia until we launched the company in 2020. But that idea didn't begin in 2020. The execution began in 2020, but we were incubating between 2018 and 2020. I really had to assemble a team. I had to figure out how I would make sure that funding worked, how I would make sure that the technology that we were going to launch with would be the right technology to serve the industry.
Two questions from what you said. One is why you started a company out of Asia, you being American. What you said the day you arrived, you had this idea. Was it you think it's the best place to start, or Asia inspired you in some way that you wanted to do it here? And the other question is, when you assembled a team, who are your first set of people?
Great questions. The very first thing I'd say to you is that the reason that I founded bolttech in Asia is because that's where the capital came from. That's, I'll say, the primary driver. So the capital
Simple and straightforward.
You betcha. And, look, for any business that you're going to start, the capital is the fuel that helps to make that rocket ship fly. And so if you don't have the capital, you can have a great idea, but you'll still never get it off the ground. The other reason that I liked Asia is that the goal of bolttech is to help to close the global protection gap. It's a multi-trillion-dollar disparity between the level of protection people have and the level of protection that they need. That disparity is particularly acute in many of the emerging markets, and of course Asia and Southeast Asia in particular really fits the mold of what it is that we're looking to address when we think about some of the challenges that exist in the marketplace today. And then the third thing that I really liked about Asia, and I liked about founding this business in Singapore, is that while I was serving in my previous role at AIG, I had taken an international assignment in Europe. So now I had lived in North America, in the Western Hemisphere. I had lived in the center of the earth in Europe. And this was my opportunity to live in the part of the world that I think is the fastest growing, most dynamic, and quite frankly, will be the future of really the economic engine behind the world moving forward. And so that's what really excited me about this. The very first people that I brought onto the team included the chief technology officer, who, by the way, is stationed in Melbourne, Australia, and also our chief product officer, who at that time was headquartered in Singapore, but today is located for us in Germany. And what's great about this is you can already start to see we're really a global business. You said it earlier, we are in 30 plus markets around the world. We're actually on 4 continents and 39 markets. And my team has to be close to where the action is. So some of my team is located in Asia, some of my team is located in Europe, some of my team is located in North America, the 3 primary markets that we focus on so that we can help to make sure that we're close to the markets that we're serving. We better understand them culturally, and we better understand the unique differentiation from one market to the other, as well as the regulatory environment. And we're in a highly regulated business. This is the insurance business. It's very highly regulated, and you can't fail to understand the rules of the game if you're going to play the game.
So, what were the first batch of products that you launched, and did it worked immediately, or there was quite a few back and forth to find the right product market fit?
Well, there's definitely a lot of back and forth that it takes to find the right product market fit. As a matter of fact, the way that we address the market opportunity in North America is dramatically different than the way that we address the market opportunity, for example, in Southeast Asia. And so in North America, we like to work with other insurance companies who are trying to distribute product but maybe don't have an appetite for every product that a customer needs. I'm going to use an example for you. The product combination in North America that is maybe most well known is what they call the auto and homeowners bundle. They call it the auto and home bundle. Typically, those two things go together because if you own your automobile, then you typically park it outside of your home or your apartment you're renting or that you own. And so you need protection for both of those two things. But it's very possible that a single insurance company does not have an appetite for both of those risks. And so one of those risks might be met by the insurance company themselves, but the insurance company in this case might recognize that they're not the best one to provide the other protection, and that other protection might even have to come from one of their competitors, a company who specializes in the other product. But if you always focus on putting the customer first, you'll always focus on what is the customer's need, not what product do I want to sell to the customer, but what does the customer need. And so in America, for example, we work with Progressive Insurance. They are a major direct marketer of insurance in the country. They offer auto insurance as their primary core skill, but they like to complement auto with homeowners, and they will complement that homeowner's appetite with another insurance company's appetite because that's not in their Progressive's normal risk appetite space. That's an example of what we do in North America. But when you move to Asia, for example, that auto and home bundle might not be, and it is not, the lead product, the lead capability that we start with. And here in Asia, we've actually reversed it around. We've said, here in Asia, what customers really care about is they care about their way to stay connected to the world. They do their banking online, maybe on their phone. They communicate with their relatives, maybe on the phone. They may even live with family, so their outlet to get them to be with their friends is maybe their phone. And so here in Asia, tend to come to the market instead through the telcos. So instead of through an insurance company in America, it might be through the telcos or through your electronic device as our primary product. So you can see two different geographies. The starting point in North America might be homeowners, but the starting point in Asia might be your cell phone and what we call device protection.
So your team, do they come from insurance background, or it's not something that because you already come from insurance background, right? So when you look for a product manager and technology officer, do you look at their resume from previous experiences?
Yes, we absolutely look at people from outside of the insurance industry. You're correct. I'm a longtime insurance industry veteran, and because of that, I didn't feel as though we needed people who were like me. We needed people who complemented the capabilities that I bring. Our chief technology officer comes out of the banking industry. Our chief product officer also comes out of the banking industry. Two places where, two examples of people who are very important to the business, who come from outside of traditional insurance and who bring expertise from parts of the market that are trying to bring insurance products to the market themselves. So many banks are delivering what's known as bank assurance. And so these kinds of products are being thought about by the banks. In many ways, banks are more advanced in technology than the insurance industry. And so this is where I searched when I wanted to find the best people for the business, not just in the insurance industry. So we are an Insurtech, which is the intersection of technology and insurance. And I wanted those two capabilities to come from the best breed of wherever those people came from, whether it was inside or outside of insurance.
How big is your team now to serve all these partners and clients in all these markets? How many people do you need?
We have in total a bit over 2,000 people around the world, again in North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Hundreds of those people work in labs, technology labs, where we are even repairing your cell phone device. We also have a big tech team where we build our own technology out of Tel Aviv, Israel, out of Portugal, and out of KL in Malaysia. So we have an Asia team, we have a European team, and we have a team serving America out of Tel Aviv. And so these are some of the biggest places where we use human beings to actually repair devices, as an example, but also to build our own technology.
Yeah, especially now in markets like Singapore, the smartphone ownership rate is extremely high, right? And it's growing across in the neighboring countries as well. So after your 0 to 1, you also scaled so fast. It's unbelievable. How do you manage to, spread and acquire customers in such rapid speed?
Three things are really important in answering that question, Miro. The very first thing is that it's always important to stay true to your mission. Understand what you're trying to accomplish from day one. And I've said this already, that we're trying to be an important part of helping to close a global protection gap. It's a multi-trillion-dollar disparity between the haves and the have-nots of protection. So this is, by definition, a global matter, a global protection gap. So our destination was never going to be one country. It was even not going to be one region, because this problem is pervasive around the globe. The second thing is that I came out of an incumbent insurance company that has an amazing superpower, but their amazing superpower is their global franchise. And so if I learned anything from my years of being in the problem, from my years of studying insurance and understanding the thing I'm trying to bring solutions to, I understood that this global infrastructure, this global network, is really a critical success story in insurance. If you're going to dominate one market with one product, you'll eventually saturate the market, and that product will run its course. But instead, we're trying to help to close a global protection gap where we can bring learnings from Asia to Europe and North America, just like we can bring learnings from Europe and North America to Asia. And so we find that we have this built-in sharing mechanism where learnings in one part of the world can make it to the other parts of the world. We knew that we were trying to solve a big problem, not a little problem. That gives us a huge opportunity to bring value, not just in one geography, but in all the geographies we wanted to serve. The second thing is that we work with really big clients. So an example of a big global client we work with is Samsung, the manufacturer of the cell phone. And we worked initially with Samsung in 2 countries in Asia. And by the end of next year, we expect that that relationship will extend not just in Asia, but it should be in 45 countries across Asia,
Wow.
Europe, and Africa. So it's very specifically tied to a product that we like, very specifically tied to following our partners. We have a partner-led strategy that says we're trying to solve the protection gap for our partners customers. We play in a B2B to C marketplace. So we are really focused on those big partners, and we'll follow them to the geographies that they want to see, that we can bring our capabilities to help them succeed everywhere around the world.
So the Samsung example, for example, is when people purchase a Samsung phone and then they have the option to purchase an insurance to protect that device through bolttech. Is that correct?
Samsung offers what's known as Samsung Cares Plus. It's also very similar to Apple offers a product called Apple Care. And so this is the warranty, the protection for their device that they have manufactured. And that protection has to be delivered by someone. Samsung is focusing their attention on building the best devices in the world. They're focusing their attention on the research, the development, and the distribution of their products around the world. We help them, we enable them to do all the great things that they're doing and to bring the best protection to their customers without having to distract them from their main mission.
So they had other partners before bolttech came into the picture. What have you done right that you started with 2 markets and then you're going to enter 40 markets?
Samsung is one example of a partner, but I could also use as an example the fact that we work with Apple in many countries too. And I guess I would say that sometimes we're helping these partners to develop a capability that they never had before. And sometimes, you're right, they had the capability, but they didn't have it everywhere around the world. And because we are an organization that's capable and willing to deliver everywhere in the world, as these companies look to expand their reach with providing protection solutions, we can grow along with them, and we've shown the capability not to work with them just in one country or in one region, but across the world. And so I think when you focus on delivering absolutely high quality service at an affordable price with the best possible quality that you can do, then that really resonates with our business partners, and that's been the recipe and the secret to our success.
I want to dive into the part about running a global company, because I think a lot of the Chinese companies or Singapore company, we always think about how we can go global, right? And the usual way is you conquer your home market and then you test in the market that you think you're familiar with, or you have found a local partner and then spread. But sounds like you're doing it like from the day one, you're global. That's very investment heavy. And how do you achieve that is because you have a lot of capital, and also you hire local people in these markets, or how do you say I'm global?
So let me start by saying you can tell from this accent that I was not born in Singapore, but I live in Singapore. Singapore is my home. I'm proud to call it my home. I have been a resident of Singapore for about 7.5 years now. So the very first thing I'd say to you is, the question is, what is my home market? So I live in Singapore, but Singapore is a population of about 6 million people. I'm from America, where the population is 330 million people or more. And so as a result of that, I knew the market that I came from, which was America, and I also know the market that I live in, which is Singapore. And our business partners are familiar with each of the countries that they serve. So as I used an example with you earlier, Samsung or Apple, or it could be BYD, a Chinese company selling vehicles outside of China. They're selling
Is
these.
BYD a client of yours?
They are. They are. So in the UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, BYD is a client of ours. But I ran Europe for AIG before I moved to Asia. So I'm not afraid to live outside of my home country. Maybe the best move I ever made was to live outside of my home country, because each of these markets are markets that I have run before, that I have experience leading teams in. And so for me, I always set out to solve a global problem, always set out to build a global business. And where necessary, we've demonstrated that we'll actually pick up our bags and go live in the place that we're trying to serve. If you want to be able to serve a market that's far away, you can't do it unless you're willing to really put yourself into the shoes of the customer in that geography. So I've lived in Europe, I've lived in Asia, I've lived in America, and the mandate that we have is to serve our customers on this global basis. So I wouldn't call it because we have capital. I would start by saying it's because we've never lost track of what we're really trying to solve, which is the global protection gap. We recognize that the superpower of some of the best insurance companies in the world is their global reach. And so we're emulating the really good things about those companies, and we've been willing to pick ourselves up and go live in the places that we're serving.
Speaking of capital, how many rounds of investment have you raised?
We've had 3 fundraising rounds, I'm proud to say. Our Series A, which was led by Activant Capital out of the US, was the largest Series A for an Insurtech in the history of the world, $247 million. Our Series B, which was led by Tokyo Marine, and
Another insurance giant.
Again, another insurance giant, and a great business partner for us. And that was just a little bit smaller, about $246 million of capital raised. And then our Series C, which included Generali and the Dragon Fund out of Singapore as 2 of the big investors. That was $147 million. We take that capital, by the way. It is what we use to build our technology. Our technology is all homegrown technology. We run the world's leading technology-enabled insurance exchange, where we're really matching buyers and sellers of insurance using technology to make that happen. And that is homegrown technology. We proudly fuel that with the capital that we've raised. We fuel our geographic expansion with the capital that we raise. But no one's going to give us capital unless we demonstrate that we're worthy of receiving that capital. So we have to show that we're building a great business with a very differentiated business model, where our partners are asking us to do more and more and more and grow into more locations, and where we've never lost track of the fact that we're here to create value, which means you can't just have growth as the only metric that you want to have when you're trying to build a company. It's the balance between growth and profitability. So we're quite proud to say that the reason we think that companies have continued to be willing to give capital to bolttech is because we understand the importance of financial discipline. I am a finance geek at heart, having spent 18 years at Deloitte & Touche. And so we understand this balance of creating value to become a profitable business, as well as the dimension of running fast and building fast and growing at a pace that's maybe faster than much of the rest of the market.
So bolttech is profit generating?
bolttech has become an EBITDA positive value creating business. We're super proud of that. It's very hard to do it. I think of it as an F1 race. We've got to grow faster down the straightaways than the others, but then we have to be able to make the key turns. And one of the turns is to become EBITDA profitable for the first time ever. The second one is to become EBITDA profitable on a sustained basis. We have made the first 2 turns. We became EBITDA profitable.
Is it this year or last year? When did you achieve those milestones?
This is our first full year as an EBITDA positive business. And again, 5 years into our life, I'm quite proud that we've been able to build a business that spans North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa across 39 countries, and is now a profitable business. So that's something we're extremely proud of.
So some of the entrepreneurs that I've talked to based out of Asia are complaining two things. One is there's a funding winter in Southeast Asia. Secondly, this region don't necessarily have good tech talent. How do you solve these two problems?
Well, first, I think of it from a glass half full perspective more than a glass half empty. I can tell you that we have, in fact, been able to raise capital during even what's known as this funding winter or this funding desert, whatever you want to call it. As I mentioned recently, our Series C was led partly out of Singapore by the Dragon Fund, and I'm super proud of that. We also had a Series B lead out of Japan, and so with Tokyo Marine. So you can get capital out here. I think you can get great capital in Singapore, great capital in Asia in general, but you really have to have the kind of business model that these capital providers are attracted to. It has to be a fast-growing and a very clear path to profitability. And you have to prioritize Asia as one of the markets that you're really trying to serve. So we've been able to do that. I'm proud of that. I also think that from a human capital perspective, there is a lot of great talent everywhere in the world. You just have to know where to look, and you have to be able to be the kind of company that will attract that talent to yourselves. And you probably have to be flexible. So one thing I would say is I have 10 direct reports. My 10 direct reports live in 7 different countries. So it's very important for people to recognize that if you're going to operate a global business, even if your headquarters is in Singapore, it doesn't mean that all your human beings sit in Singapore. Here in Asia, I have a senior leader in Malaysia. I have a senior leader in Australia. Of course, I have a senior leader in Hong Kong and in Singapore. But I also have one in Germany, one in the UK, and several in the United States. And so, so you get the idea that it's very important to be flexible with how you think about where that talent sits. And so I'm not stuck with the idea that the talent, the technology talent, had to come per se from any one country, because my team sits in the markets where we're trying to deliver our capabilities in the first place. Instead of always demanding that everyone sits here next to me in Singapore, it's more important for me to get the best possible talent. And if that means that the best possible talent is in some other country, I'll still take them. I just have to maybe work harder to make sure that the people are communicating the right way, and that we're forcing our team to still be face to face, even though we may not always be in the same geography. For example, my leadership team was just together in Singapore a few weeks ago. They spend their time together, focused on their own relationship, but they also focus on solving our company's challenges and pursuing our opportunities face to face as much as possible.
How often do you bring people together? Because I was gonna say, like, also for you, because all these people operate in different time zones. So, how to have meetings every day?
Yeah. The very first thing that I'll say to you is that sometimes people ask me, gosh, Rob, isn't it really hard? You live in Asia, you have senior leaders in Europe and senior leaders in America, and how do you keep these 3 geographies working? The very first thing that I'd say to you is no one's twisting my arm. I love being part of a global business. And so does it mean that I have to work late at night, many, many nights, and that I'm busy in the morning in Asia, in the afternoon in Europe, and in the evenings maybe with Europe and with and America at the same time? The answer is yes, but it is extremely doable. If there was one thing that did come out of COVID, I think we learned much better the capabilities that we have with things like Teams and remote access to one another. But I think you do have to work hard. There's no substitute for putting in the hard hours that it takes to make this work. I'm proud of it. I don't mind it, and I love what it is that we're doing in the first place. When it comes to getting the team together, I love to do it in unique ways. I have a home in the United States. The team comes to my home every year in June. They live together, sort of roughing it,
Wow.
with me at my home in the United States.
In your range?
And it is sometimes on, it is a farm. They live sometimes on air mattresses, so they're not living in the lap of luxury, but we're together, face to face, forced to bond as a team because you're probably sharing a room with someone, as an example.
For how long?
We do that for a week, week in the summer. We just had them in Singapore for a week, and we'll be together again in January for a week in Thailand. And so there are ways for us to get the team together on an ongoing basis, and I think it's very important. That's how we do our budgeting. It's how we do our planning. It's how we do our strategic brainstorming. We do these things together.
Rob, some people say that, oh, if you're a corporate guy, you're a corporate guy. If you're a startup guy, you're a startup guy. But you were a corporate guy, successful one, and now you're a successful entrepreneur. How do you manage to do both? Do these two roles require very different skill sets? Did you have to change yourself, or did you think that there are things that can be picked, plug and played?
It's sometimes too easy for people to have a single stereotype. It's like saying, for example, that Insurtech is one thing. There's many different flavors of Insurtech. There are Insurtechs that focus on distribution. There's Insurtechs that focus on underwriting. There's Insurtechs that focus just on the technology. And so it's very hard when people just generalize, just like when they generalize and say you're either a founder and an entrepreneur or you're a corporate guy. You're right. I surely did have a long career in corporate, but maybe my entrepreneur was trapped in there. I grew up as an entrepreneur. My family owned some of the first video stores that I was ever in my life. That's pre-Netflix, before you could do any of the streaming.
Like DVDs? DVDs?
It was pre-DVDs. And so back in the 1980s, my family owned these the video stores. And so I would just say that the entrepreneurial spirit was probably always there. But I also say that I started in an entrepreneurial environment and I learned how hard it was. So as a credit to all of you entrepreneurs out there, it's hard. And bless your souls for having the energy to do that every day. And I thought early in my career, boy, that's a tough way to go. I did that as a youngster. I now want to seek refuge in a larger organization with more resources and where maybe I would have a different experience. I loved it. I had a great experience in public accounting at Deloitte. I had a great experience in insurance at AIG. But I also had this calling that said, boy, I just want to put my own hands on the steering wheel and drive the car myself, because I don't like telling others how to do it and then second guessing why they didn't do it my way or being dissatisfied when things didn't turn out the way I would have hoped. And so to me, this was sort of a return back to my roots. I admit, by the way, that I've hired people in bolttech over time where they came out of maybe a large corporate, and I don't think that the transition was perfectly suited for them. But at the same time, I found many people who have been successful at being able to jump back and forth. The number one thing I'll say to you is it's in your head. If you don't have the right mindset, and your mindset is not one of flexibility, I tell people all the time, you need the illities and the ooities if you want to succeed. In either place, but especially as a founder. You need to be able to deal with ambiguity. You need to have flexibility, You need to be able to deal with agility. You need to have, this is a made up Philadelphia word, learnability, where you're a constant learner. You need to have adaptability because things will never happen the way you thought that
They're
they
the
should.
same thing, right? Because there's
They
no
are.
right answer. Yeah.
That's right. And so to me, if it's in your mind that you understand that all the answers won't be prescribed for you and that you can learn as you go and you can adapt as you go and you can be agile, then you'll succeed. But if it's not in your mindset and you're
Well, but
not,
90% of us don't succeed.
yeah, true, true. That's a fair point. But I would say that you'll succeed in making the transition to where you're capable of succeeding if your business can succeed. One comment that I make about starting businesses is that you can have a great business and really bad timing, and it won't work. You can have a bad business but great timing, and maybe it does work. And the best of all worlds is when you can have a great business and great timing so that it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but there's many different combinations. So it's possible that you mentally were able to make the transition. You had a great idea but bad timing. Yeah, that's possible. You
Yeah.
could imagine someone who found that bad timing to be COVID, as an example. It turned out
Yeah.
for bolttech that really advanced the era of digitization and the online buying behavior of
Yeah.
individuals. And as a
Really
result of
expedite
that,
that.
it helped us in many ways. So we had a great idea and we got help. And so I will always say that sometimes you have to have that combination of being lucky and being good.
Well, Rob, let's talk a little bit about you. I mean, you shared a little bit. You came from an entrepreneurial background. You are certainly not someone who's afraid of doing hard things. When I was doing my research, I saw that you're avid runner, athlete. You did the Ironman World Championship. So have you always been like that since young?
I'm always someone who loves the challenge. I grew up working maybe the hard life as a very young child, working on a farm, and so that is I think really hard work. Maybe while many others were out playing, I was working, and I was working long hours during the summertime because that's what you do on a farm. But it also taught me great discipline. And, what I'd say is I was probably never the all-time single smartest person in school, but I knew that I could work hard and I could learn it. I also knew that I wasn't the all-time single best athlete, but I knew that I could outlast anyone. It's a mental model.
It's
I'm
a
not
determination.
afraid. It is. And so it's funny when I'm a horrible swimmer. When I did the Ironman World Championship for the first time, I knew that it would be a frighteningly horrible experience for me to get in the water with 900 other men in a mass start in Kona, Hawaii, who were going to swim right over top of me. And the main thing I had to do was program my brain to recognize I wouldn't drown, just learn how to not die. And if I learned how to not die, I would survive. And I said to everyone, I guarantee you, as long as I didn't drown, I will be at that finish line. And I was. So I'm someone who really likes the ongoing challenge. At this moment, I'm training for a really crazy race. My wonderful wife and I. It's always good, by the way, to have a great training partner. So my wife is training with me for something called the World Marathon Challenge. We'll run 7 marathons on each of the 7
Around the world.
in 7 consecutive days. So
What?
yeah. So that will be at the end of January. So I love the idea of running a business at a very high caliber, working really hard, but figuring out a way to make time so that you can fit in a extreme challenge. It just shows you a little bit of how my brain is wired. But I'll also say that you can only do many of these things with a little help from your friends. In this case, I'd never be able to do this training without a little help from my wife, my life partner. who helps
That's
to
lovely.
get through these things. And so I spend time with her maybe while training.
Oh, that's lovely. I made a point to ask all the male founders how do they balance work and life. Sounds like you guys have figured it out. But
Yeah.
it's lucky that your wife is into that as well. Because my husband has trying to ask me to row with him for years.
Yeah, yeah. It is its own challenge. You have to find a happy place where you can find your own unique individual happiness. It doesn't have to be that you do something like what we're doing, what my wife and I do, but you do have to find time for the balance between mind and body or between work and play. It's just a fact of life. I love my life, and I love my time with my wife. I'm not someone who says, "Gosh, I got to get away from my family. I got to get away from my wife." I want that time, and at the same point in time, no one twists my arm to get me to go to work every day because I love what I do. I love who I do it with, and we've built a team and a atmosphere at bolttech that I think is really very very much a family kind of
So are you doing the tech 996 or 24/7?
It will seem like that is the case. My biggest challenge, or maybe my biggest change in my life, has come that I have to focus on finding a way to sleep. I actually consult with a longevity coach on even on sleep because my brain is
Too
trying to
wired up.
solve.
You're too
It is.
active
It's trying to solve problems while
all the
I'm
time.
asleep, and I have to stop it. I love to run with just those thoughts in my head, and I can solve problems on a long run by just thinking alone. But I want to have sleep where I'm not thinking about about the
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
But
yeah,
my
yeah.
brain at times is not allowing me to
So have
stop.
you found a solution to slow
Yeah.
things down?
So
What
I,
do you do to
I'm
slow things down?
I'm someone who would recommend to everyone, please don't think it's a weakness to have a coach or have outside help. Many people think that, gosh, if I ask for help, it shows that I'm weak. If you ask for help, it shows that you're strong. I have a coach. I've had a coach since my AIG days. It's the same coach that I've had for, I don't know, it
Oh,
feels like it's
wow.
getting to be almost 20 years now. And then the only other point that I'll say to you is that I've taken also to focusing on longevity. And so I work with a longevity organization out of Singapore. And what
Oh,
they try to do is they try to help you to close the gap between how many years will you live and then when will your biological health break down. And they want to make sure that the biological health will stay good as
as
long as possible.
closer to,
You
yeah.
betcha. Make the gap between your chronological age and your biological age as narrow as
So
possible.
the
So
quality of life improves, right, in
you
your
betcha.
older age.
And so as a
So
result
what's
of
your
that,
body age now?
it's my secret, but I'm continuing to try to reverse it and send it backwards.
Looking back, is there something that you would do differently? Would you maybe start bolttech when earlier in your 40s or 30s? Or, is there any regrets?
I think the biggest regret usually is that you will have learned once you've done something that you didn't need to be afraid of it, right? So I'm with a giant smile, I'll say I'm like maybe many Americans who are very closed in their view of the world because America is so big. And so I had
You do
begun.
feel you're in the center of the universe, right?
You betcha. You're in a great country at the center of the universe, and you think at times maybe that you don't need to know about the rest of the world or experience the rest of the world. And so I had the great privilege of being given an international assignment that caused me to lift up and move to Europe while I was at AIG. And it was the best thing in the world for me. It taught me to let go of my fear of language, let go of my fear of culture, stop thinking that my country was the center of the universe. The world is huge. If you're outside of the US, consider visiting in there and getting some time there. But if you're in the US, get the heck out and come see these other great parts of the world. Asia is amazing.
Rob, you seems to be, this kind of person who wins, right? You work hard and you win. Has your ambition ever disappointed you or strayed you?
Without a doubt, I think people see the wins. One thing I would say, even about fundraising at bolttech, I say this with humility and with a smile. Many people will say, "Oh my gosh, you've done such a great job. You've raised a amazing Series A, Series B, Series C." We've been told no many times, and you do learn about yourself. You learn actually about flaws in your own business that you could improve. So
How did Rob take a no for an answer?
I will tell you that one thing about me for sure is I'm not great at taking no for an answer. You can give me a no, but if it's reversible, meaning that I can work harder to get it to a yes. My wife and I joke about a simple decision tree. Imagine that you were building a decision tree, and the very first box on the decision tree is a box that says, "Do you have a problem? Yes or no?" And if the answer is no, then it brings you down to the bottom box at the bottom of the page. It says, "Then what are you worried about? Why worry?" If the answer is yes, I have an issue, then the next box is, "Can you do anything about it?" If the answer to that is no, well, then why worry?
Then don't worry about it. Yeah.
If the answer is yes, well, then
what can I do to solve the problem?
Then solve it. In which case, there's nothing to worry about because you don't have to worry because there is a solution. All you have to do now is to work hard and solve it. And so I kind of think about that as, in each case, the answer is always going to be don't worry, and if it's within your power, just work harder and solve it.
Would you say you're a optimist person all the time?
I try to be an optimist all the time. Probably people who work with me will say that maybe I'm too optimistic, that I always see a path forward. I always see a bright future. But the truth of the matter is, I think that you have to be optimistic. I'm optimistic for everything. I'm optimistic for geopolitics. I'm optimistic for the world. I'm optimistic for closing the global protection gap. Has it been fixed yet? No. Geopolitics are still an issue. The climate change is still an issue. The global protection gap is still an issue. But I think that there are many people working hard at trying to solve that and make it better. And I think if there's something I can do to make it better, then I'm going to do it.
Where are you going to be in 5 years' time, and where is bolttech going to be in 5 years' time?
bolttech's mission has been to build the world's leading technology-enabled ecosystem for protection and insurance. A big mouthful, but world leading. So I think we will be the leading Insurtech focused on distribution. We will be definitely a homegrown technology-driven organization, and that we will really be using all the most modern capabilities like AI to help make our business as successful as possible. I believe that bolttech will be one of the key players in helping to close the global protection gap, and that gap will be getting closer and closer to having real solutions. For me personally, I'm above age 60, but I have a lot of energy and a lot of interest to continue to work, and so I know that I'll continue to be pursuing my passion, because it's too much of a passion, and I find it to be too much fun and too interesting. But I really also am a believer that I want my team to be empowered to lead the organization. So I will be, helping with bolttech, but the truth is that I want my team to be the ones that are leading bolttech 5 years from now, and that I will be maybe on the board of bolttech, maybe helping them to succeed. But I want the people who are on my team to see that I'm a leader who creates for them opportunity and gets out of the way when the next generation of great ideas is ready to take it to its next space.
Is an IPO public listing on the agenda?
It's a possibility. The way we talk about it is that capital is the fuel that makes the rocket ship go. And so we will continue to raise capital. The form of that capital is really determined by the market more than by bolttech. And that decision many times is made for you rather than we just decide, hey, we're going to do an IPO as the next round. We're going to raise capital, and then we'll raise it in whatever is the smartest way possible.
What kind of advice would you give to the younger generation who wants to start their own business and early on in their life, who don't necessarily have the kind of energy level as you? Not everyone is like that.
Well, I'm going to say that I would give you 3 pieces of advice. The very first thing that I'd say is that I began today's discussion with my Albert Einstein quote of, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes really understanding the problem and then 5 minutes on the solution. And I say that because it is really important to understand the thing that you're trying to solve. Even think about AI as an example these days. Many times people have an AI product or an AI capability. They're just trying to figure out which problem to assign it to, which problem it solves. I don't like that at all. Yeah. I like, you tell me the problem, I'll find an AI solution to that problem. Is the better way. That's the first thing that I'd say. The second one is be true to your mission. For us, we're on really a mission to create the world's leading technology-enabled ecosystem for protection insurance. We're focused on helping companies, being an enabler to close the global protection gap, which is a multi-trillion-dollar protection gap. Why we love that, by the way, is it's a multi-trillion-dollar gap, which means no one else is doing it today. By definition, it's a gap. Supply and demand are mismatched. And so you don't have to fight in a red ocean every day.
But now that they see you're successful, there will be people joining in.
I hope so. I hope so because we invite that because we're not going to be the only solution by ourselves. And I think the world needs more enablers who will help others to solve the problem. And then, so I just say, stay true to your mission, understand what you're doing. We've never wavered from the North Star of the mission that we're trying to achieve and our goal of trying to help to close that global protection gap. And then the last thing that I'll say is have a real dose of humility and positivity. And what I mean by that is, it won't all happen for you magically in your first try. You will hear no. You will get answers you didn't want to get. And if you're going to let that deter you, I think it's a mistake. So don't let that happen. The second comment that I would make about the same is really have a energy for helping others. Not just humility to accept that no, and that you'll have problems that detour you, but this idea that it's never about just yourself. You'll never succeed by yourself. We're an enabling capability. bolttech by itself isn't the solution. bolttech with our business partners, bolttech with the insurance industry, bolttech with incumbent carriers can be really successful. But bolttech by itself, now we're like an ingredient in a great batch of cookies. But that ingredient by itself doesn't taste the same as the baked cookies where you put all the ingredients together and then you followed the instructions and you baked them the right way. So that's the advice that I would give to anyone.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure. That was my conversation with Rob Schimek, Group CEO of bolttech. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to Asia Tech Lens. I'm Miro Lu. See you next time.